Welcome to Battle Rankings Live. I'm Svetlana, and today I am joined with.
Oh,
Chris Fretz.
Hi, Andrew Hopson.
All right, and so today we're going to be talking about clubs. This will be the start of a whole entire series of clubs that I am going to try to interview. And if you have any clubs that you want to recommend, feel free to drop that in comments or DM Battle Rankings, whatever is easiest. And then we also have a new linktre link that'll also be in this description. But today we're going to be talking about Able Company. So to kind of start off, what club and gaming groups do you two participate with?
We're based here in Indianapolis, Indiana, and our group is Able Company. We're based out of 2 stores in the area, and that's the only gaming group that I'm part of.
Same.
Okay. What first got you to playing tabletop gaming?
Oh boy! Well, when I was younger than you, Svetlana, I had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of little Airfix plastic soldiers.
Mm-hmm.
I remember seeing a TV show. It was like one of those Sunday afternoon news, fluff news stories, and they were talking about a wargaming group. And I was like, I want to do that. So I ran down to the local hobby store the next day and bought a bunch of the packs of Airfix Napoleonics. They were like 50 cents a piece at the time. So you get, 50 figures for 50 cents, and they actually looked pretty good. And that kind of got me started, and I kept up that through high school, but then college and family started up, and that went away, and it wasn't back. And then it was about 2010 that Chris Fretz and I were talking about gaming, and he and John Bennett sucked me into flames, and I've never looked back.
Chris, I saw you take a sip of something looking very whiskey-like.
No, just iced tea. No ice in it though. But no, I started with also with the Airfix figures. Not necessarily gaming with them, but just sort of playing around with them and painting them. And of course, anybody who painted the Airfix figures knows as soon as you put paint on them, they started flaking off because it was a really flexible plastic. So it was always very disconcerting to get some paint on them and then just sort of watch it come off. But then through high school, I played a lot of the SPI, Avalon Hill, paper chit, hex-based games, and again, much like Andrew, went away to college, got busy with my life, busy with work, and about 2008, a friend, John Bennett, who actually was one of my coworkers, introduced me to the game. And same as Andrew, I sort of never looked back. Still have been playing since. Came in right on the tail of version 2.
Okay.
Right.
Do you have the veteran sticker then on your book, on your V2 books?
Yes, I think I do somewhere. If there's of course I have all the books piled somewhere. I think they're over on a shelf unit over here.
Okay, so you didn't exodus your collection like Joe did.
No, I probably will at some point. I mean, I think I've thinned it out a little bit, but they're interesting as reference books, and it's always. I mean, I like to keep a copy of each one of the rule books, just as people look back on the golden days and can look at those and see that no version is perfect. Everyone has its own idiosyncrasies and challenges, and
I mean, the lessons from the front's there for a reason.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I keep them for the old painting guides too.
That's true. That's very true as well.
Because for a while, Battlefront switched over to an in-house brand of paint, which had all different names, and then they switched back to Vallejo.
Yes.
So a lot of the books, sort of the early version 4 books, the painting guides are kind of hard to follow because a lot of those paints don't exist anymore.
I do. We have the Colors of the War reference book.
That's a nice collection.
We have that one, and I appreciate the referencing in that book because I'm just like, okay, this is the general idea for this pattern, and then it's a lot more easier to base off of than like, I like the picture of this camo pattern, and then you're like, this didn't turn out the way I wanted it to.
Well, and then you also look at the historical research too, and I've seen many times that probably the same photograph on Facebook of all the German uniforms, just sort of all stacked up, and there are 85 different colors for the uniforms. I mean, there really was less uniformity than I think we take into account when we're trying to paint things. So at least I try to vary colors and show passage of time and wear and all of that stuff as well.
And I think that's a great thing just to like add in, because then you can bring in the history of the.
Yeah, and back when we started out trying to get those Airfix colors just right, there were no references.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
Other than the model box itself, you'd be kind of.
Plus, the lack of uniformity really gives permission to players to kind of just be like, yeah, I don't like that. I don't like doing this style anymore. And then you can kind of have the freedom to do whatever if you're one of those guys that has to have the historical based painting versus the Hello Kitty tank armor. Or
We've
tank.
seen those too.
Whatever. Which is also very valid to creative freedoms within the game.
Yep.
So what are your roles within Able Company?
Well,
like,
we
where do you kind of stand in terms of Able Company with like planning and stuff?
Well, the club's been around since before, and I think we'll get into how the club started a while in a little bit in here. But the club's been around for quite some time. And when we originally started, there was we had officers, we had roles, we had a bunch of that. And over the years, it has become more and more of a loose association. I think we have several people, myself, Andrew, Joe from Battle Rankings, and Scott Ernie specifically are people involved in the group who are able to run tournaments, have the experience level, have the interest, and that's a great thing, is being able to have a bunch of people that are able and willing, so there's not just the one guy in the town who is the guy who is always organizing, who is always putting things together.
Right. And then we have people like Harlow and Mark who like to do event games. So they're really good about putting together sort of one-off games that are good for recruiting new people. If one really looks good, we try to work it into Gen Con. And again, it's just that scratches a different itch for a lot of gamers, because not everybody's a tournament player. Some people like to play scenarios and events.
And I think the different scenario games present a different challenge than just standard tournament games. Just because you can be like, hey, this is a hit the beach themed one, and you can only run with these type of units or whatever. And then you're like, okay, it challenges higher level players maybe a little bit more because they have to work around the rules and be creative with their forces. But it also gives like a good chance for demo plays.
Yeah.
Right. But the big difference with the demo game is that we have to provide the forces. A tournament, everybody brings their own army, and for a demo game, we have to provide the armies for them.
I mean, I'm sure there's been plenty of examples where you're like, yes, I'll bring an extra army for you because you don't have much.
Oh yeah. There's a lot within the club of lending and borrowing, and even with our event games. I mean, one of my roles with the club is putting together Gen Con every year, because that's a huge event for us. That's probably our biggest event, which is at at Gen Con here in Indianapolis, 50,000 gamers descend. Who, for those of you who may not be aware of it, Svetlana was here this past year and witnessed it all. Takes over the downtown of Indianapolis. We put on 3 tournaments and several different sort of intro event games over the weekend. So it's a large undertaking for us, and I'm the primary organizer on that. But again, with the number of people we have involved, we're able to spread the work out so that Andrew runs a tournament. Hopefully Andrew gets to play in 2 tournaments. I run a tournament. Hopefully I get to play in 2 tournaments. We're able to divide that labor up, and I do the front end organizing. But that kind of comes naturally to me because my job is much the same. I work for a theater company putting on shows. So it's all about putting together events and that kind of stuff. That's a role I have taken on a continual basis.
And that's a big shoe to fill if you ever don't want to organize that, just because of the mass amount of planning. And I'll put the Gen Con one in there as well, just in the description, just because, I mean, Gen Con is a huge event for you guys, and there's a lot of planning that takes place just to even think about going.
Yep. And we're fortunate it's here in Indianapolis. I mean, that's the best thing for us and for Able Company is we get to sleep in our own beds at night. We have a short commute. We don't have a big travel day. I actually work downtown, so I have a parking spot right across the street. I don't have to pay for.
You'll make me jealous. I'll have to have John message somebody for a house to stay in next time instead of an Airbnb.
Yep.
So what game is it? Mostly Team Yankee and Flames of War with the Able Company, or are there other mixes of games in there?
We are mostly Flames of War and Team Yankee, probably up until very recently 100%. But there has been some alluring new games that have come out, and Andrew can probably speak to that as he has taken the dive. I have not as yet. Just because it's daunting trying to create another army, another game for me.
A couple of us have sort of dipped our toes into the Black Powder American Civil War epic scale system.
I'm not sure if I've heard of that game. John dabbles in many games.
Right.
So
Black Powder is sort of a generic rule system for any kind of early musketry through the beginning of the machine gun kind of warfare. And,
okay.
And then a couple of us have sort of done occasional Napoleonics games. But again, it's very informal. It's not really a club activity. It's just several members of the club because a lot of us like gaming, and it gives this difference. Charlie Clay from the Get Some group, who you should talk to, he's the guy who kind of dragged us into Black Powder. He has a habit of, before big tournaments, often he'll show up the night before with one of his personal collection of figs, and he'll set up a big game for everybody to play the night before. So we've done that a few times. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and Black Powder has originally been a 28 millimeter game, right? And this system that they put out now for the American Civil War, and they also have Napoleonics, is, as you say, the epic scale, which is like slightly bigger than 15. Is that right?
No, it's like 12 millimeter.
Oh, it's like small, 12 millimeter. Okay.
Yeah, so they're a little bit smaller. But the idea is that you can get, up to 100 figures per unit. So it looks pretty impressive on the table.
Once you paint
just imagine how intense that is to paint.
I've been doing it all summer, and I've got about 8 regiments done. So,
I mean,
it looks cool, but I'm a slow painter. Tom Burgess was laughing at me. Yeah, I could paint those in like a day. It's
like I take preference to like tanks because like I'll see a box of infantry, and I'm like, John, you're painting those. I ain't touching that. I'll paint all the tanks and half tracks and Humvees you want, and I can get a solid 2-3 companies in a day done if I like really sit down and work at it.
Mm-hmm.
But you see me with infantry, there's
It's
12 millimeter sounds horrifying.
Yeah, if you look at the box, if you can find on the web a picture of the open box, it is daunting.
2,400 figures.
20, yeah, that's the starter box.
Yeah,
and they're in each piece is
like
10 figures.
Well, hang on, I'll go get one. You can,
okay. Yeah,
right.
it is.
While he gets it, I'm just taking a note, and I'm just gonna throw a picture up of the air flyers at some point during the video.
There we go. So that's what you get.
Oh my gosh, that's a lot of figures on that one.
Yes.
It's 20 figures on the stand, 2 ranks of.
Yeah, each rank is a sprue or is a piece to paint. So you don't have to get your brush in there between the first and the second if you don't glue them to the base beforehand.
Yeah. So that's only 2. It's only 3 pieces of plastic if you count the base.
Ooh, I'll put a picture up.
But when you see, a lot of them on the table, it looks pretty awesome.
Oh yeah, the game. I mean, the game you ran was just awesome there. The day I was there. Yeah, you could probably send Svetlana a picture of that. I know you have a couple, and she can put that in there.
I'll throw it up.
That is a game that there is considerable interest in the club on, and there are a number beyond the couple who have started in. There are a number, I think, who are thinking about the dive.
Yeah, because really, the biggest selling point for a game is that will I have an opponent?
And I think that's a challenge for a lot of players in Team Yankee and Flames of War, is when they don't know where to go to play. That's why they don't want to get into the game.
Sure. Although it is the nice thing about it is a both national and international. You really, if you can find a place, it's a very common, you have a very commonality to start with somebody to get a game in, as opposed to some of the smaller games where everybody has their own version or there are multiple versions and multiple standards. And so that's one of the nice things about Flames.
Yeah.
I mean, it was fantastic. I was able to go to Serbia in 2019 and play for the U.S. team, so we're playing against players from literally all over Europe and Australia and New Zealand.
Which is
playing the same game, which is really great.
I mean, at that point, how much of a language barrier is it then? I mean, if you have the same, you don't know what they're, what the rules are. You all understand what the rules are.
Officially, all the games are supposed to be in English, but that's a pretty wide, pretty loose definition of English in some of the games. But we never had it. Language was never really an issue.
Right, because you all have the same rules to play by.
Right.
So what events? We talked about Gen Con. What other is it like? And some tournaments.
Mm-hmm. We've been trying for the past couple of years now to do a monthly tournament, and been pretty successful with that. Pretty much here we have a few Team Yankee players, myself, Andrew, Joe, maybe 2 or 3 other people who have bought into the game who play occasionally. So we don't have much of a following in Indianapolis for Team Yankee. So it's almost all Flames of War tournaments or Flames of War events. With any club, and I'm sure we'll talk about this a little bit later, you've got to have a club has to have an alpha dog. I mean, has to have somebody who's going to be I'm going to wave the flag for this game. I'm going to say, I'm going to be here every Wednesday night with a force and start that off and publicize it and move it forward and, breathe life into it as a club. I mean, that's one of the best ways to get a club started. And unfortunately, I know for myself, and I think for Andrew, and I think for Joe, that interest is really in Flames of War. Team Yankee's okay, but give me the choice, I'd rather play Flames than Team Yankee. So we've never really had it pick up locally. So most of our games are out of town games when we're playing Team Yankee. But we have the monthly tournaments, and we've also started doing some escalation leagues, trying to drum up new players. We did one with the North Africa book when it came out, and we're about to launch into one here in a little bit on the Eastern Front book. And we found that generated a lot of interest. We got a number of people who have participated in that, and some of them are continuing on a regular basis. So that's been nice. And then, as we had talked about earlier, we have the occasional scenario games or things like that happening. We're fortunate enough to have two major stores in Indianapolis, both Family Time Games, which is sort of my home store, and Sinclair Games. And that's both a good thing and a bad thing, because it does split the club up a little bit. So we don't have some of the big numbers of people coming to play at once. And there's a little bit of a split between the two, just because I live closer to Sinclair, or I live closer to Family Time, or my schedule works better with this. So there's a little bit of division in that way, but we get a lot of people who cross over.
So what about like pickup games where like somebody says like, I want to meet up, I'm free to play a game here. How much of that goes on?
A bit.
Quite a bit. I mean, we have at Family Time, we have an email chain that goes out. Shane, the owner, keeps really trying to push us into Discord, but we're all old and we don't get it yet, and we haven't figured it out.
Technology scares us. Yeah,
yeah, that's kind of stuff. So we have an email chain that goes out a couple of days before. Tuesday nights and Sunday afternoons are our set game nights at Family Time, and then Wednesday, the guys at Sinclair actually do a text message chain amongst the players who are normal there. And so I'm part of that as well. So all of a sudden on Tuesday, I'll get a whole bunch of texts saying, I'm coming, what are you bringing? I'm coming, what are you bringing? What are you bringing? Okay, no, I can't make it. So I get a whole run of those. And that's how they set up their Wednesday nights there.
But also it gives us the advantage of because of the chain, if somebody's looking for a game outside of those times, they can just post it. Anybody open for a game on Saturday, which is nice. But I think also just having that consistently, knowing there's going to be players there on Tuesdays and Sundays is great for new players, because, somebody will walk in the store on, say, a Monday afternoon and see the Flames display and go, oh, does anybody play this? And Shane can go, well, yes, come in on Tuesday or come in on Sunday. And you can meet the guys who play, and he can consistently count on people doing that. And we get a lot of people who drop in and, say, I was interested in this game, and then they watch, and sometimes we'll run demos. And if we do it right, then you see them walking out of the store with several $100s of Flames under their arms.
We had a father and two sons actually who came in, I don't know maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, and they were kind of in and looking for something they could do as a family, and it was just the kids, the two. I mean, they're I don't know how old they are. They're probably in their 20s, and we told them about it and took them through it, and they said, hey, this is really cool. Our dad really likes to paint models, but they've never had anything to do with them, so they bought into a set, and they've been there the last 2 weeks. And 2 weeks ago, I took them through, they've got the Kasserine box. I took them through a very simple game using the Kasserine box, actually not even the entire Kasserine box. It was like a platoon each of what they had assembled. And then they were back last night, and they had assembled more. And this time they were able to run a game pretty much by themselves. Again, just basic tank stuff. But I think they really are picking it up, and that's a great thing for them and a great thing for us in terms of increasing our participation.
So something that came up in the conversation that I had with Matt from Regina Rifles last night was COVID and how that affected their club. How has that affected Able Company?
Well, we shut down we shut down playing pretty much for what, Andrew, until like August?
Yeah, that
or
sounds
so,
about
from like
right.
March to August. You know, we would stop by the store, and certainly, you know, when things really started first shutting down, I stopped by the store and picked up a whole bunch of stuff that you know, I wanted to support the store and help them through as much as I could. So I picked up a bunch of stuff, and I knew I would not be playing, so I'd have stuff to paint. And so we had no playing going on for about 3 or 4 months. But during that time, as many people did for many different reasons, I found Zoom as a resource, and was using it. We were using it at work for meetings, and I was using it, and I picked up a subscription of it so that I could visit with my family, who's out of the area here, and also at that point started a weekly paint party. And so that is actually still going on. In fact, I just sent the invite out for tomorrow to the players, and Andrew's a member of that as well. But we have a changing group of I think the email goes out to maybe 15 different people, not only here but across the U.S. Other players who, same thing, either have a small gaming group or whatever, and we gather on Zoom, and much like this, except we're actually painting and maybe not being as attentive to the screen. And for 2 hours, we sit and paint together and have a chance to chat. And so that's what we did during those months. And as I say, I've continued that. And then about September, we actually started having we started with just local only events for 3 or 4 months, just trying not to encourage people to travel and, you know, keep it close. And we played for, and that's really when we started back. And from then on, we've been pretty much every month or thereabouts with a tournament, and the weekly gaming started back. And first while we were all wearing masks, and you know, gradually that has eased off. So
I do know about I do know about the monthly games, because I know John will go up to Family Time games if he's off, and
you would be there.
Whatever, he travels to Indianapolis.
That was the year. I think I counted up the number of models I painted that year, and it was, you know, 300 plus. Maybe I'll send you one of those photos too. One day I just spread everything out. I painted on one of my dining room table, and it basically covered the table quite easily.
Yeah, I did an entire Team Yankee Dutch Army start to finish, you know, starting at that period of time, and I've been playing it quite a bit. If you look on battle rankings, you'll see a lot of me in Dutch and tournaments.
Right. Okay. But it's such an easy thing to set up. You know, any group can do it as long as they have a Zoom connection. And because there was a while there where I would do our painting party, and then I would go to join the California painting party. So basically, I'd be, you know, online painting for 4 hours straight in my evenings.
Yeah, and the Minneapolis group also did it as well.
Well, that's right.
Sometimes you just need that little push.
Yeah, no, it's great for me. I mean, sometimes there's only 1 or 2 people who come, but you know, it gets me an organized time every week, 2 hours of just sitting there and painting something or assembling something, and something to talk about with people with common interests. So I would highly recommend it. Even now, when we see each other on a regular basis, I keep it going.
So what is the story of the group? What got it started?
Yeah, I'll leave that one to you.
It actually predates me. I mean, as I said before, I think I started in 2008. I'm not sure exactly when the club started, but it was started, I think, here in Indianapolis first, and then it as Able Company, which is our group, and then it grew actually into a multi-city organization. A lot of people at that point saw the club and said, "Hey, this is cool. Can I set up a chapter?" Essentially. And so a kind of umbrella organization called GameCore was started, and there was an Able company and a Baker company and a Charlie company, and I think at least up to Golf company, if not even a couple letters more, all around just sort of the general central Midwest here. Evansville, Fort Wayne,
Columbus.
Columbus.
Yeah, Columbus is golf.
Yes, Columbus is Golf company, and they were the sort of last other survivor of that club, that organization that I'm aware of, and they're still their players still around. I think as an organization, they don't really exist much anymore. They used to run the Advance the Colors tournament in Springfield, Massachusetts every year. That was their big event, but that's kind of fallen apart a little bit in the past couple of years. But speaking of falling apart, a year or two, 18 months after I joined, there was a bunch of unhappiness, shall we say, with the way the overarching GameCore organization was going, and also growth by all of the individual clubs. And so GameCore as an entity broke up. And we at that point decided that we had a little bit of a name for ourselves at that point as Able Company. We liked the name. So we came up, and that's when we came up with our logo, which I know you're going to put somewhere. I've got it on my shirt here somewhere. There it is.
I'll flip it up.
Yeah. Yeah, we had a competition amongst the members at the time, and that logo came up from one of the players, and we've used it ever since. And so we've sort of created our brand there. We use it on all our advertising, and we have shirts and T-shirts and pins, and we put it on our trophies that we award for Gen Con. So it's been around for 15, 17 years, something like that now.
Impressive. Yep. So you're talking about how it kind of like grew an area and then shrank. What's the area that you run events, and then I know it kind of differs for the area that you run events in versus the area that you draw people from.
It's pretty much the same, I think. I mean, our events are pretty much either at Family Time. We used to do them at Sinclair, but they just don't have enough space anymore to host events.
They moved into a smaller store space, so
right. They have less gaming space, and then Gen Con, and then I guess is Hoosier Con happening this year?
Well, no, it's
or what do they call it now?
Well, it's not Hoosier Con. Hoosier Con happens, but we haven't done it there. Indie Storm, which is a new Indianapolis. They had one right before COVID, January before COVID shut us down, and it's a good sized new convention that's been happening. I can't remember if John came to that one or not.
I don't know what events he goes to our call. I just know he goes.
It's in late January, early February. I can't remember exactly. But we are going to be running events at that again too, and that's like I think it's less than 1,000 people convention, but they've got a real nice organization there, and I mean in terms of our reach, again we have Gen Con in the area, which we're very fortunate about. We're also really situated just about in the middle of the hotbed of the flames of war world in the U.S. I mean, the Midwest really, I think, is where, because of our closeness to everybody, is where there's a much larger community able to, multiple places be able to run games between us and Indianapolis, the Hard Knocks Games folks down in Elizabethtown, John over in Newark, Ohio, the Advance the Colors in Springfield, Ohio. The Chicago gamers and the Milwaukee gamers are now really picking things up as well.
And Twin Cities is still going strong.
And the Twin Cities. but we even the Pittsburgh gamers, I mean, we really are sort of in the middle of all that. And we do from time to time get all of those, you know, groups from all of those, especially with Gen Con. But we also have here hosted both the Flames of War and the Team Yankee Masters tournaments. And we sort of pioneered the creating side tournaments as part of that. So we get a lot of people traveling to play in the side tournament alongside the Masters when we do those events.
And those are good for like family members or whatever that play that might not be in Masters.
Yep.
But they're kind of like dragged along, so then they like play in the side tournament.
Yep. And friends, and I mean we usually get a big contingent coming because usually there are several people from the Minneapolis group who are qualifying for Masters, and usually we'll get at least that many people coming from the group who are just traveling with them. So it's a real nice way to create a sense of community there, show a lot of people from a lot of different areas come into play. It helps our player base too, in terms of they can be exposed to some more players and more play styles. And it's a fun weekend to hang out too.
Mm-hmm. Where can Able Company be found?
Well, on Facebook, we do have a Facebook page, and we do post there for our tournaments and events. We will always post on the Flames of War Facebook page, the Team Yankee Facebook page, usually the unofficial Facebook pages as well, sometimes out into the various other groups. But at least on those 4 locations, I have been neglecting posting on the Flames of War events calendar. We should, but we haven't been doing that. I'm not sure how much that actually is active now, really.
I'm not sure. I know John's usually really careful to post stuff on there just because it's a good starting point for publicizing your event.
Yeah.
And then it puts it on the radar for other groups that aren't necessarily associated with where you locally post at.
Right.
Yeah, but that's sort of the extent of outside Indianapolis where we post things, and otherwise we're just the stores know Family Time and Sinclair know our play times, our game times, and I don't think we really do. We advertise anywhere else, Andrew? I can't think of anything.
Not really. Yeah, we don't. Usually, people find us, and without
And I have a mailing list of out of the area players who have come to our events before, and I'll usually, when we announce a tournament, we're going to be doing one here in September, and I'll probably send an email out to 30 people around the area, just saying, hey, just so you know, if you didn't catch it on Facebook, there's the information, because of course there are some people who are not on Facebook, so. I know. It's great. What?
Old people not on Facebook.
And again, no Discord, unfortunately. Maybe someday we'll get a Discord
channel.
Shane,
for you. Will.
Yes.
Someday somebody will figure it out
for
you.
Members figure out Discord for us.
Just delegate one of your younger guys that you know is like habitually on it potentially.
Well, that's why
we do have a number of younger guys in the club. We're not all old white guys like Andrew and I.
Just delegate somebody my age. Be like, hey, you.
Yep.
Discord.
Right, and then as we said earlier, we're very good about being very regular on those days that we say we're going to come in and play, because that way new players can find us. So there's always going to be somebody around.
And then on the same vein of finding a able company, how do you recommend people find a gaming group?
Well, going on to the Flames of War or Flames of War Unofficial or any of those, and just saying, hey, I'm in X place. I know a lot of gaming groups around the U.S. I know a lot of people around the U.S. who play. So I will many times see that, and I'll say, "Hey, you're somewhere in Kentucky. Hey, Tom Burgess, highlight him, get him off, and he can point someone in that way." So that's probably a good way to find stuff. And the other thing, going back to how we started at Family Time Games. The other thing is, if you can get if you have even just a couple players in your area, Family Time was not, when it originally opened, it did not carry Flames of War. We were actually playing at a different game store, Games to Die For, here in Indianapolis. This store opened Family Time, and they were interested in the game and interested in supporting it. And it took a while to kind of colonize there, if you will. It took us
all of our stuff.
Yeah, we just started. Yeah, we brought terrain, we brought armies. Andrew and Joe and I and a couple other people, and we would just come there on a Saturday, a Sunday, and we started playing. And again, we were coming on a regular basis. The store owner, fortunately for us, was interested in historicals. He didn't have a whole lot at the time. He was actually more of a board game and more of a board game store when we first got there. Yep. He had some miniatures.
I think I think a lot of game stores are like that, though. They kind of they either focus on Warhammer or board games or comic books or Magic the Gathering or some of these other things that are a bit more widespread and easy to sell to the public.
Have a very high startup cost,
and then Magic. And then you might be able to work in a historical game here or there after there's a little bit more of a draw and that they know that they can sell.
Right. And that's the key. Show them that there is a market for it. A store isn't necessary, because buying into Flames of War for a store is several $1,000s even just to get a little shelf somewhere of here's some starter sets. You've got the owner has to understand that there are people who are willing to play and people who are interested in it, and that they're gonna ultimately they need to make money to keep the store open. So they're going to pick and choose, and that's one of the reasons we left the store we were at, because they made a decision to sort of move in a different focus for things, and they just weren't keeping up with the Flames of War stock at the time. It was getting harder to get things, and so we made the decision to make that shift with us.
What is the farthest distance you've ever had to travel to find paint or minis or models or whatever? That's a constant struggle for me and John, just because of
thanks to the internet. Usually it's
awkward locality.
It's usually me searching. It's searching all over the place. I remember I had to order some figures that were out of print from Norway, and then I had to sign up for Norwegian Venmo, so I paid Venmo or whatever, and that took a while, because all their correspondence with me was in Norwegian, and Google Translate was getting some of it, but it wasn't getting all of it.
So and you're I am American and I need this.
I tried to order paints from Singapore, which is fine as long as they're not spray paints. Just because this was during the height of the pandemic, where everything was in short supply.
And we're fortunately, Sinclair is a huge internet retailer, so we can kind of support a local store, because Heights Sinclair there has lots and lots and lots of stuff, and has a big internet business as well as the store. Shane at Family Time also does a pretty good job of stocking stuff, and not the same volume I think that Height does, but they're both really good resources for us. But yeah, then the internet. I recently I was looking for some Romanian R2 tanks, R35 keys. Yeah, and you couldn't. Battlefront was their resin for Battlefront, and they weren't making them at the time. And so I ended up having to go to. I found a great resource in Greece, guy who was 3D printing them, and really some beautiful work. And found it on Etsy, and was able to order a bunch there and get them shipped to me. And so you look around. I mean, the biggest thing is you really need to, again, if you want to have a local place to play, you got to support your local place where you're going to play.
Right.
Mhm.
Unless it's something I need to have,
Right.
I'll just wait till family time has it.
Yeah.
I'd rather pay the extra. I'd rather pay the extra few bucks and make sure that I have a place to play.
Right.
So how do you recommend somebody to start? You kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, but how do you recommend somebody starting a club if they're kind of like middle of nowhere that is still trying to cultivate the game?
Find one other.
Yeah.
You know, and I think right now with the new, I think the new starter sets, the Kasserine and the Tobruk, and now the Stalingrad and the Kursk and the whatever the German ones are, I can't remember now. I mean, those are excellent ways to get a group started. You get one other person, you split that box. It's less than $100 between the both of you. You start with that, and you find a store with a table space. You know, maybe make some paper scenery or something, and just start playing. And then from 2 you get to 3, and 3 you get to 4, and you know, it's hard work. It's hard work to start a group and get a group going. It's not going to drop in your lap. A store owner isn't necessarily going to say, I'm going to create a club for you.
Right. Yeah, and I think it's also a case of you have to be really consistent. You know, it's like I said, make sure they know, the store owner knows every Saturday we're going to be here. So if somebody expresses interest, they know where to go. Advertise, you know, just on Facebook, say we're getting together and to play on Flames on, like Rich Bear always posts about what's happening in Pittsburgh. You know, Legions, you know, we had 15 players and, you know, 8 games going, which I don't know how you work with 15 players, but there you go. But you know, just doing that.
Somebody's a ringer.
Yeah, somebody's playing 2 armies at once. But that's how you do it. But and again, I think playing in a store is better than playing in somebody's house, because you get a lot of traffic walking by you, and that's how people get sucked into the game. They see it, and if it's your armies are well painted and the table looks great, man, that's a wonderful advertisement for the game. I mean, that really is a wonderful advertisement.
Any closing thoughts before we finish off?
This has been a wonderful hobby. I mean, it's kept me very happy for the last 12 years now, I think.
Yeah, so I would agree.
I put Phil Yates' kids through college with all the models I bought. But you meet a lot of wonderful people. I had to travel. Like I said, I got to go to Serbia. I mean, Chris and I have traveled all over the States to tournaments, and Chris has played in the UK.
Yeah, and Canada.
And Canada, yeah. I've got to do that in the next few years. So it's really been great. I mean, it's well worth the time and the effort. And I love painting too. So even when I'm not at the game store, the way I unwind at the end of the day is just sit at my painting table and paint something. So right now I'm bouncing between American Civil War, and Italian armor. So
that's a great combination to bounce around with.
Well, eventually you go, I need to paint something with color on it, not just colors of drab.
All right. So like, subscribe, comment, hit all the fun buttons. I will have Able Company's Facebook page linked in below, as well as like the Gen Con video. And then do
you want to send
we have a link tree now? Battle Rankings is a link tree. So now all you have to do is click that one link, and then you can find all of our other links.
Great. Do you want to send me an address where I can send those pictures to you?
Of the Civil War stuff?
Yeah. that in the
I
My
yeah, I'll
Pandemic
message you my email.
Okay.
Yeah, hit all the fun buttons. And watch out for more of these club interview videos, podcasts.
There are a lot of good clubs out there. That's for sure.
And recommend the clubs that we're missing out on if preferably Flames of War and Team Yankee are playing. Because that's what Battle Rankings talks about. But yeah, let us know who we should talk to. Because I'm only one person figuring out some of this content stuff. Thank you for coming on. I'm going to stop recording.
Yeah, you should